Hey guys, welcome back to the JPM Performance channel. It is time to talk about installing pistons into a block. You have spent all your time, all this money, all this effort making sure that your piston rings are fitting in the board just perfectly. You've clearanced everything perfect. You've installed them onto the piston properly. You have gotten everything clocked. Now you need to install these into the block. And you need to do it safely and efficiently. So there's a couple different ways of doing this. If you've been around engines for long enough, you've probably seen one of these. This is your standard ring compressor, 100% universal. You can back it off for big pistons. You can tighten it up for smaller pistons. These work. I've used these forever, literally, for years and years and years. They do work very good. Over the years, I have found a slightly better way of doing it. Total Seal actually makes ring compressors that are, these are slightly adjustable. You can see that this one is made for 3.400 bore size to 3.500 bore size. And it's got a hose clamp, it's got a really nice taper that gently tapers your rings down and compresses them. You do need to make sure that your piston fits. What I like to do is I like to take a piston, just a bare piston with no rings or anything, and adjust your hose clamp to where it just slips through, just barely. So that's, while you don't want this to be dragging on the piston too hard, you also need to make sure that you're compressing your rings far enough as well. The other thing that you can do is you can take dial calipers. If you know your bore size, obviously you can check this. The only problem with these is, because it's adjustable and you tighten this down, it is not perfectly round. Believe me when I tell you, when you put these in, they are not perfectly round. So let me show you what I'm talking about. We're actually going to use this one. I have a really nice piston. The rings are all clocked properly. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this down inside here. Now, it really won't go any further than that because it's not clocked quite right. So you turn it, and it just falls in. Being very gentle, making sure that the rings glide into the compressor. And you can see that I've got it in about that far. So, step 2, make sure that you have your valve notches in the correct orientation. In this case, what we've got is our intake over on the, we're going to call it the driver's side of the engine compartment. And so you can see we have larger valve notches here versus here. So slip it down into place. Let's make sure we put some lubrication on our bearing. It's a little harder when you're having to explain things than when you're just trying to do things and explain things and not explain things. You can just be in your own brain, so you don't have to worry about it. So, okay, try and center up the rod in the middle of the piston. We've got our piston about halfway down the compressor. We've got our intake notches facing the correct direction. We're going to very easily and gently slide that into here and set that down. Now, I've seen people use a lot of different things over the years when it comes to pushing pistons in. Seen guys use the butt end of a hammer like this. While this is rubber, you can tend to get some garbage if your hammer is like mine. It gets used for literally anything. Why would you want to use a tool like this to push your pistons in when, for not a lot of money, I got this at Summit Racing. This is a proper, purpose-built piston installer, and it actually has the shot in it. So you don't have to hit it that hard for it to, what happens is the shot comes up when you go up, and when you come down it hits, and then the shot double hits. So it's what they call a dead blow. but this is only for, you can see it's got this long snout, only for installing pistons. So, moving on over to here, the first thing that I like to do, oftentimes I'm actually doing this where the block is on its edge like this, which works fine too. This is a little bit easier because you're having gravity help you. The first thing I'll do is I will tap down and make sure that this piston installer is sitting nice and flush. And I will use 2 fingers like this, and I will very gently start tapping. Now, one of the tricks that I've come up with over the years is I will actually rock the piston ever so slightly, side to side, so I'm not hitting just straight down. The reason that I'm doing this is so that the rings have a chance to compress, and maybe some other engine builders disagree with me on this technique, but this is what I do. I go back and forth, just a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time, and you don't want to force it. You want to make sure that it's continuing to go down, because if you force it, odds are you have just broken a ring. So you can see how gentle I was with it. The other thing is, once you get the piston, the rings are compressed, the piston is in, you should be able to very easily push this piston down, just like this. I mean, I can literally, with just a little bit of force. So what that tells me is that I have not caught a ring on the edge of a ring land, and I have not damaged a ring. This is a very, very critical part of engine building, guys. Once you get that completed, I like to push it down a little bit further, only maybe about halfway, because now we need to flip it over. This is a Mazda MZR, so I always mount these on the side of the block. Most engines you do mount from the back. But once I've got it flipped over like this, I can actually reach my finger in here and I can line up the connecting rod with the journal and go from underneath and push this piston the rest of the way in, making sure that my connecting rod is lined up with its journal, just like that. And now it's seated. Now we can go through and install our other side of the cap and finish the rest of the engine. So really, really critical part of engine building is compressing your rings. You can damage them very easy. Even if you just chip a ring or if you bend a ring, it can damage your piston, it can damage the ring, obviously. All of that is going to lead to poor ring seal and poor performance. So appreciate you guys watching. If you have any questions, as always, hit me up down below. Good luck with your next engine build. Take care.